For the longest time, Trainsim World has focused primarily on just 3 countries for its routes, namely the United Kingdom, Germany, and the United States of America. That is still the case today, for the most part, but there are a few exceptions to the rule if you know where to look, and now, the Netherlands has joined the ranks, as it were, with the release of Dovetail's Spoorlijn Zwolle to Groningen route add-on. Initially, I was hesitant to get this route because A. It is very expensive, and B. My knowledge on the Dutch railway system is somewhat limited, but curiosity got the better of me again. The Zwolle to Groningen route was released on the 25th of March 2025, only 1 week after the Cardiff City network, and during that time, the controversial Thomas the Tank Engine add-on was also released. I play the PC version of TSW, and bought the Dutch route from Steam, where it costs an eye-watering $64.49 NZD at full price, same as West Coast Mainline Preston to Carlisle and the Mittenwaldbahn. Even though I can afford to buy TSW add-ons at full price, I don't do so every time, and it doesn't mean I have to refrain from questioning or criticising the price. If Dovetail are going to charge as much as $57 or $64 for a TSW route, they need to make sure the quality is as good as it can possibly be. Unfortunately, there have been several occasions where the quality is far too low for how much the add-on cost. As for route length, this one covers 107 kilometers, or around 66 miles of track, but the station count isn't very high. In addition to Zwolle at the southern end and Groningen at the northern end, there are intermediate stations at Meppel, Hogeveen, Balen, Assen, Haren, and Groningen Europa Park. For reference, Zwolle is 82 kilometers or 51 miles east of Amsterdam. Come to think of it, I'm surprised that Dovetail didn't go with the route in the Netherlands that has more well-known places, such as Amsterdam or Rotterdam. Incidentally, Groningen is depicted with some major construction work taking place. In this state, the station is a bit unusual, with Platform 7 being the only through platform, while 1 through 6 are split in the middle with A and B sections. If anyone can explain what all this construction work is for, please do so in the comments. 2 trains are included with this route, namely the ICM Koploper and SNG Sprinter electric multiple units. It's a rare thing for a TSW route to include multiple trains that are actually new to the game, so that's one point in this route's favour, although personally, I would have preferred to see a route set far enough in the past that we could get the Nederlandse Spoorwegen 1500 class electric locomotive, formerly the British Railways Class EM2. The SNG, short for Sprinter New Generation, is a fairly modern train, with the first examples only entering service in 2018. They were built by CAF of Spain, and come in either 3 or 4 car formations, but for some reason, only the 3 car variant is included in the TSW add-on. This thing looks a little bit like the Deutsche Bahn BR425, albeit with smaller windows and a cab that vaguely resembles the UK's Class 195 and Class 331. Come to think of it, I'm pretty sure the SNG Sprinter is the first CAF product we've ever seen in Trainsim World. And on the subject of CAF trains, I'm still holding out hope that someday we'll see the Auckland Transport AM class and a Britomart to Manukau route in TSW. As for the ICM Koploper, this is probably my favourite Dutch train. This class has been a staple of intercity services in the Netherlands for over 40 years now, with the prototypes entering service in 1977, and the production units entering service between 1983 and 1994. The design is notable for the unusual cab front, with the cab itself mounted much higher than normal to accommodate gangway connections, which allowed passengers to walk between two or more coupled units. However, the gangways were removed from all Koplopers during refurbishment between 2006 and 2011, but the cabs remained the same. As such, the driving experience is quite interesting due to just how far above the track you get to sit. As is also the case with the SNG Sprinter, only the 3-car variant of the Koploper is included in this add-on. Why DTG didn't bother adding the 4-car variants is anyone's guess. Although the version that you get in this add-on is the refurbished one, which is designated as ICM-M, with the second M being lowercase, I still refer to her as the ICM for the sake of simplicity. As for the sounds on this in-game rolling stock, I can't verify their accuracy due to my limited knowledge of these units. So instead, I'll show you clips of each one leaving a station, and anyone who's more familiar with the real things is welcome to comment below and tell us if the sounds are accurate or not. Timetable mode features 155 playable services for the ICM Koploper and 179 services for the SNG Sprinter. There are some empty stock moves included, but the schedule is mostly regular passenger services. The SNGs are used on stopping services, while the ICMs run limited stop intercity services. It only takes around 66 minutes to complete the full run from Zwolle to Groningen on a stopper, and 57 minutes if you're running an intercity service. Besides the trains that come with this route, other motive power also layers onto timetable mode, namely the Vossloh G6, which was developed as an add-on for Rhein-Ruhr-Osten, and the Deutsche Bahn BR193 Vectron, which comes with Frankfurt to Fulda. It's a pity that the Vectron only has 2 playable services on this route, but it is what it is. And just thinking back to the train depots for a moment, I've heard that this depiction of Groningen de Vork is not entirely accurate to the real thing. Zwolle has a depot too, but you can't access it in-game, so make of that what you will. It's worth mentioning that the Dutch network is electrified at 1500 volts direct current, a somewhat outdated system compared to what other European countries are using. The speed limits on this route are not particularly high either, with the ICM Koploper and SNG Sprinter being restricted to 140 and 160 km per hour respectively. A safety system called ATB is included with this route, although you can still drive the trains with that system disabled. Indeed, I don't understand or know how ATB works myself. There's not much scenery variation throughout the route, as you're mostly driving through flat farmland, but there are still some good bits of detail if you know where to look. For one thing, the stations are fairly well modelled, with my favourite being either Zwolle or Berlin. There are working lifts at least 4 stations, namely Zwolle, Meppel, Assen, and Haren. I also like the streams running along both sides of Hoogeveen station, but my favourite detail on this route is the audio for the level crossing bells. It is remarkably similar, if not identical, to the bells that used to be at the pedestrian crossing north of Kundala, a station on the Johnsonville line in New Zealand. Unfortunately, this crossing had its Dutch bells replaced by W.C. Hayes E-bells in 2022. However, there are still some downsides to this add-on. Nothing's perfect after all. For starters, the SNG Sprinter's master controller is overly sensitive to keyboard inputs, just like the BR642 DMU from the Maintalbahn before she was patched. As for the route's performance, I think the best way I can describe it is inconsistent. I still get occasional stuttering, and the frame rate was only around 38 to 45 FPS in the Zwolle and Groningen areas, then between 55 and 75 elsewhere on the route. Building interiors are not modelled at most of the stations, with the only one I remember having an accessible interior being Assen, and even then, only for the station concourse and cafe. Come to think of it, if Just Trains could model numerous building interiors for just about all the stations on their routes, why couldn't Dovetail do the same for Zwolle to Groningen? Other issues I noticed included the floating cars on Stationsweg, which is clearly visible from Meppel station, and the bizarre lack of working lifts at Hoogeveen and Groningen Europa Park, not to mention shadows visibly popping in and out of existence, although I don't think the shadow bug is isolated to this one route. As for the scenery, I thought it was decent overall, but I noticed a few areas that looked especially bad, to the point where you could argue that it's only up to TSW2 standards. Insert rant about the TSW annual releases here. In conclusion, I have mixed thoughts on Spoorlijn Zwolle to Groningen. While it's good to see another route set outside of the usual UK, US and Germany trio, and I enjoy driving the ICM Koploper, I can't deny that this add-on is too expensive for what you get. The lack of the 4-car ICM-M and SNG variants is pretty disappointing, and while the route may be decently long, its linearity and a small amount of stations mean that it doesn't offer enough replay value to justify that full price. In the end, I think the Zwolle to Groningen add-on is deserving of a 6 out of 10, and if you want to try this route for yourself, I recommend waiting for a sale and buying it then.